Hello viewers, welcome to the lecture on prokaryotic gene expression. Gene expression comprises of all the steps involved in the conversion of a gene to a gene product. Every living organism comprises of its own genome. All the informations that lead to the conversion of a gene to a gene product are embedded or encrypted within this genome. This information actually remains static. Now, when we want to utilize this information, we need to carry on the expression of that gene. This is the basic theme of central dogma of life. This basic terminology of central dogma was first coined by Francis Crick in the year 1958. Therein, he proposed that the gene can be of two different varieties. One class of genes are those that code for transfer RNA or tRNA or ribosomal RNA or rRNA or some regulatory RNAs. This is the end product of that particular gene. There is another class of genes called messenger RNA or mRNA. This messenger RNA is getting converted from the DNA by means of a method called transcription. So transcription is responsible for conversion of a DNA into an mRNA, rRNA, tRNA and other regulatory RNAs. But it is only the preference of messenger RNA that it moves forward and undergoes another process called translation, wherein mRNA is getting converted into a protein. Basically, if we broadly classify the forms of life as prokaryotes and eukaryotes. In case of prokaryotes that we are taking today, we see that the ribosomal RNA and the transfer RNA undergoes processing after the method of transcription. But in case of mRNA, we will see that there is no post-transcriptional modification in case of prokaryotes.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yeah.
Why there is no post-transcriptional modification of mRNA?
Yeah, it's a very nice question that we all know that in case of prokaryotes, the transcription and translation are coupled. Reason behind is that prokaryotes don't have any well-defined organelles, right? So in case of prokaryotes, the location wherein transcription and translation are occurring are one and the same. Whereas in case of eukaryotes, we will see that transcription occurs in the nucleus and translation occurs in the cytoplasm. So the transcript which is generated within the nucleus has to cross the nuclear barrier and it has to reach the cytoplasm. And during this course of movement, it is susceptible to be cleaved by the nucleases. That's why it needs to protect it and it undergoes post-transcriptional modification. Now let's look into the basic structure of RNA, right, which is the end product of a transcription. RNA comprises of three important components. One is a nitrogenous base, then it has got a ribose sugar and phosphate residues. If we compare the basic building blocks of RNA with DNA, then we will see that in case of DNA, the nature of the sugar is deoxyribose. It means it has got hydrogen at its 2' position of the sugar residue. Unlike in case of RNA, we find that the 2' position has got one hydrogen and one OH. So if we compare into the bonding patterns of RNA and DNA, we will see that RNA is much more flexible, as herein we will see that in place of thymine we do have uracil, and DNA we see base pairing between guanine and cytosine. Same thing happens in RNA, but RNA has got an additional advantage that it can undergo GU base pairings as well. Though there is no such hydrogen bondings, but they can exist in a stable conformation. And as RNA is single-stranded as compared to DNA, it undergoes formation of different secondary structures. These secondary structures are result of hairpin loops which are formed because of the repeat sequences within the same RNA molecule. As you can see here that there can be generation of hairpin loops as well as formation of pseudoknots. how the pseudoknots are formed? Pseudoknots are formed between the nucleotides which are part of the hairpin loop, basically which are part of the loop. It means they are not involved in the hydrogen bond. So those nucleotides are involved in hydrogen bond formation with some other nucleotides which are part of the same RNA molecule, leading to the formation of a tertiary structure, we may call it, and sometimes this leads to the formation of a pseudoknot. So this is the basic structure of a RNA. So central dogma that we were talking of states that the movement of gene information is unidirectional. It means DNA can undergo conversion into RNA, and the method is called transcription, and RNA undergoes a next step of conversion to a protein that is occurring through a method called translation. So the flow of information which was hidden within the genome in terms of linear sequence of nucleotides is getting converted into linear sequence of amino acids in a polypeptide chain. This flow of information is the basis of central dogma of life. So if we look into this polymerization steps that are occurring within the cell, and if we try to compare the replication process with the transcription process, then we will see that there are certain similarities as well as certain dissimilarities. First of all, replication process is carried out by an enzyme called DNA polymerase, and transcription is carried on by an enzyme called RNA polymerase. In case of replication, the double-stranded DNA that participates in replication leads to conversion of again a double-stranded DNA. So there is entire copying of the genome. Unlike transcription, wherein we will see that certain parts of the genome participates in transcription, and that leads to the conversion of a single-stranded RNA, right? And this RNA gets converted into protein during the course of translation. But the basic important difference here is that the error rate in replication is very less, say at least one mistake per 10 to the power of 7 base pairs, as compared to 10 to the power of 4 nucleotides that are synthesized during transcription. There is an error of 1 nucleotide. So people usually think of that why the error rate in transcription is more as compared to the error rate in replication. It's quite obvious that replication is actually maintenance of the genome. So if error is incorporated there, then the genome gets altered. That's why system has taken extra precautionary measures to maintain the genome. Unlike transcription, wherein the system can get chance for transcribing the same gene many a times, thereby it has got the option of minimizing the errors. The enzyme RNA polymerase that carries on the transcription process, how it realizes or understands the start point of transcription. It means there should be certain sequences lying within the upstream region of a gene that helps the RNA polymerase to recognize the start point of transcription. Now let's talk about prokaryotic RNA polymerase. It is a multi-subunit protein comprising of 2 copies of alpha subunit, 1 copy of beta, 1 copy of beta prime, omega and sigma. When sigma subunit is not present, then that RNA polymerase is called core RNA polymerase, and when sigma subunit join hands with core RNA polymerase, then we call it as hollow RNA polymerase. In case of prokaryotes, we see that this single RNA polymerase is responsible for transcription of mRNA, rRNA, tRNA and other regulatory RNAs. Unlike the eukaryotic system, where we have got different RNA polymerases allotted to carry on the transcription of different class of RNAs. So let's start with the different subunits of RNA polymerase. The most important subunit of RNA polymerase is sigma, that is responsible for its recognition of the promoter sequence. Promoter sequence actually comprises of the conserved nucleotide sequences that are recognized by the sigma subunit. In case of prokaryotes, the promoter comprises of -10 sequence and -35. We call actually the numbering on the basis of the point where from transcription starts is called as the +1, and the nucleotides that are lying upstream of +1 are named as -1, -2 and so on. It means the -10 sequence is a nucleotide sequence that lies 10 nucleotides upward from the region where from transcription starts. Since this minus 10 sequence in case of prokaryotes is called as Pribnow box or Tata box. This sequence is highly conserved and it comprises of nucleotides TA, TA, AT. Then we have another stretch of conserved nucleotides at the minus 35 region. This is also involved in the recognition of RNA polymerase towards any transcription start site. So if we precisely look into the domains of sigma that are involved in recognition of minus 10 and minus 35 sequence, then we will see that it is the sigma 2 subunit of sigma that interacts with minus 10 sequence, and it is sigma 4 of sigma that interacts with minus 35 sequence. And the largest two subunits are beta and beta prime subunits that actually form the catalytic cleft wherein the actual reaction or the reaction of conversion of a DNA to an RNA takes place. Now, in case of certain genes, we have seen that apart from this conserved promoter sequences, we need certain more nucleotides which are called up elements, which are needed to enhance the transcription rate. These up elements are needed if we deviate from the conserved sequences in case of minus 10 or minus 35. Now the question arises that which part of RNA polymerase actually interacts with these up elements? Then we can see here that the carboxy terminal domain of the alpha subunit of RNA polymerase interacts with the up elements. In certain cases, we can see that there are certain extended minus 10 sequences, right? So we can see certain deviations from the normal conserved nucleotide sequences which are present in case of promoter sequences. Now the question arises that what is the function of these conserved nucleotide sequences? These conserved nucleotide sequences actually facilitate the binding of RNA polymerase onto the DNA. Then the question comes that how the process of transcription will be initiated. So this is called as the recognition of RNA polymerase onto the DNA. Once the RNA polymerase binds to the DNA, it binds the DNA in its double-stranded state. So the complex between the RNA polymerase and the DNA is called as a closed promoter complex. After that, this leads to the unwinding of the DNA, wherein we will see that the double-stranded DNA undergoes unwinding, breaking of hydrogen bonds, and leading to generation of a single-stranded DNA, which acts as a template for the synthesis of the RNA. So this conversion of closed promoter complex to an open promoter complex undergoes by a process called isomerization. Now the question arises that what is the function of this conserved nucleotide sequences present in the promoter region of any gene. So these conserved sequences are actually involved in interaction with the RNA polymerase subunits. This guides the RNA polymerase to locate the position where from it is going to initiate the process of transcription. So we can see that initially the RNA polymerase binds to the promoter region utilizing its different subunits, leading to the formation of a closed promoter complex. We are calling it a closed promoter complex because during initial binding, the DNA remains double-stranded. Once the double-stranded nature of the DNA is existing, after that, the subunits of the RNA polymerase carry on the unwinding of the DNA, specifically in the region of -10 sequence. This unwinding takes place in a region of -11 to +3, leading to formation of a transcription bubble. So the conversion of a closed promoter complex to an open promoter complex is done by a method of isomerization. Once this open promoter complex is formed, this is formed by the sigma 2 subunit binding to the non-template strand. So this open promoter complex leads to the separation of non-template strand as well as the template strand. In this open promoter complex, we see the formation of 5 different channels within the RNA polymerase enzymes. The 5 different channels are namely, number 1, the NTP uptake channel or nucleotide triphosphate uptake channel. This is the channel through which the building blocks of RNA or the ribonucleotides enter the active center cleft. Second channel is called the RNA exit channel. This RNA exit channel is involved in the removal of the newly synthesized RNA from the enzyme RNA polymerase. And the third channel is called downstream DNA channel, which allows the entry of the newly upcoming DNA into the reaction center of RNA polymerase. Then we have another channel called non-template strand channel. It is through this channel that the non-template strand or the strand that is not participating in the transcription, which is also called as the coding strand, these strands are getting replaced from the active center cleft. Then we have got a fifth channel called template strand channel or T channel. This is the channel through which the template strand enters the active center cleft. So this is the suitable time wherefrom the initiation of transcription takes place, and one by one ribonucleotides are entering into the active center cleft, which is generated between the beta and beta prime subunits of RNA polymerase. So when the second nucleotides enter the active center cleft, there is a bond formation between the alpha phosphate of the incoming nucleotide with the 3' hydroxyl end of the ribose residue of the existing RNA molecule or ribonucleotide molecule. So this is formation of first bond between 2 ribonucleotides, and this leads to the release of beta and gamma phosphate. So this type of initiation reaction takes place for about synthesis of 8 to 9 nucleotides. Until and unless these 8 and 9 nucleotides are not synthesized, this RNA polymerase still remains within the promoter region, and we call this entire step as the initiation of transcription. Why we call it as a step where there are chances of abortive transcription? Until and unless the system synthesizes more than 10 nucleotides, there are chances that the RNA polymerase may fall off and may have to initiate or reinitiate the process of transcription.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah?
Why only 10 nucleotides are required for overcoming abortive transcription?
Yeah, it's a very nice question. We can handle it in this way, that people have studied that the nature of the sigma 3.2 subunit and the RNA are synonymous. And what happens, as I have discussed, that there is an RNA exit channel through which the RNA has to come out after its synthesis. So that RNA exit channel is initially blocked by sigma 3.2 subunit of RNA polymerase. And when the newly synthesized RNA wants to come out of this RNA polymerase, it has to remove this sigma 3.2 subunit of the RNA polymerase. And it becomes difficult for the RNA to remove this sigma 3.2 subunit from the RNA exit channel if its size is less than 10 nucleotides. So if the effort is made by RNA to remove the sigma 3.2 before synthesis of 10 nucleotides, it fails to remove the sigma 3.2 and falls off. This leads to premature transcription termination, and which we call as abortive transcription. Now we next enter into the second stage of transcription called as transcription elongation. This is done after the synthesis of 10 nucleotides, as I said, and this is the time wherein we see that the sigma subunit is removed from the hollow RNA polymerase. In a way, this removal is being facilitated because the RNA, while coming out of the RNA exit channel, has distorted the attachment of sigma 3.2 with the RNA polymerase. This leads to removal of sigma. Nothing much happens in transcription elongation. Here we can see that the rate of transcription is quite higher as compared to the rate of polymerization during the initial stages. During transcription elongation, we see that the movement of RNA polymerase goes on and newly added nucleotides are getting added. But two important steps are occurring, or two different methods of editing are operative during RNA elongation. These two editing steps are, one is called pyrophosphorylated editing and the second is called hydrolytic editing. This editing mechanism is done by the RNA polymerase itself. In pyrophosphorylated editing, we see that the RNA polymerase backtracks itself and removes the mismatched nucleotide, and the removal is done by addition of pyrophosphate residues onto the wrongly placed nucleotide. As we all know that during addition, pyrophosphate residues are released. So if we want to release a nucleoside, then we have to add pyrophosphate residues. So during pyrophosphorylated editing, we see that there is no involvement of external factors. In hydrolytic editing, we see that RNA polymerase might have moved ahead and it comes backward and carries on the editing step. In this editing, we will see that a number of nucleotides are being removed or chopped up, followed by resynthesis of new nucleotides, as compared to phosphorylated editing, where the RNA polymerase is carrying on the editing while still remaining into the active center. So in case of hydrolytic editing, we see that there is involvement of proteins called GRE proteins. They are actually promoting the hydrolytic editing and they also enhance the rate of elongation of a transcription process. So this is all about transcription elongation. In prokaryotes, we can see that there are two different types of transcription termination mechanisms. One is called as row independent transcription termination. This is also called as intrinsic transcription termination, and the second one is called row dependent transcription termination. So let's start with row independent transcription termination. As the name itself indicates that it is independent of any other factor. Means the signals which are needed to terminate the transcription are already present within the gene itself. So let's have a look into the sequences which are needed to carry on the row independent transcription termination. It has been seen that in most of the cases, the row independent transcription termination site comprises of inverted repeat sequences. As you all know that whenever there is an inverted repeat in a DNA sequence, and if that DNA sequence gets transcribed to an RNA, RNA being single-stranded, it gets stability by forming stem loop structures utilizing those inverted repeat sequences. So what will happen that when this inverted repeat sequences present in the gene are getting transcribed, they form stem loop structures. And formation of a stem loop structure actually creates a trouble during its exit through the RNA exit channel. Because of their secondary structure, they actually create some distortion onto the RNA exit channel and they create disturbance in the binding of RNA polymerase onto the template. So in case of row independent transcription termination, we can see that along with this inverted repeat sequences, we do have a stretch of adenine residues as repeats in the template DNA. So once the stem loop or this inverted repeats are being transcribed, leading to formation of stem loop structures, we get the synthesis of AU bonds. Adenine and uridine are forming hydrogen bonds. And from the thermodynamic stability of these bonds, it has been studied that these are the least stable bonds. Out of whether it be AT, GC or any other bonds, AU bonds are supposed to be of least stability. So this creates an extra instability into the complex between the DNA-RNA hybrid, which is needed during any transcription event. As I said earlier, that during transcription process, at least 9 nucleotides of RNA remain hydrogen bonded to the DNA. So if that bond is between adenine and uracil, then it is not of that stability. So these two factors actually makes RNA polymerase or forces RNA polymerase to leave the template strand and leading to termination of transcription. So next we come on to Rho dependent transcription termination. It depends on a protein called Rho. Rho protein is a hexameric protein and it has got a definite binding affinity towards a site onto the DNA or onto the gene is called as the RUT site. RUT stands for Rho utilization sequences. So when this Rho protein gets hold of this RUT site, it has got its ATPase activity. Utilizing its ATPase activity, it first of all moves onto the RNA and it binds onto the RUT site. And next thing is that it has got a helicase activity which can create or which can break the DNA RNA hybrid. Once it reaches the RUT site, utilizing its ATP hydrolysis energy, it actually removes the RNA polymerase from that particular template. This leads to release of RNA polymerase. We have gone through the importance of central dogma, what central dogma states. Then we have gone through the prokaryotic gene expression methodologies, the steps which lead to the recognition of RNA polymerase onto the start site of transcription or the promoter sequences. Then we have gone to the various subunits of RNA polymerase and their important roles to initiate the process of transcription. Then we have gone through transcription elongation. We studied about transcription editing. Then we have gone through the final stages of transcription called the transcription termination, which again comprises of Rho independent and Rho dependent transcription termination.